All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about something pretty wild today, a trend that honestly most people didn't see coming. Governments, actual US states, are starting to think about Bitcoin in a whole new way, not just as some speculative thing, but as a real core part of their financial strategy. So get this. This is the quote that's been flying around everywhere. And no, that's not some crypto influencer on social media. That's from a report about a US state government. Buying the dip, right? It's what investors do. Buy low, hope it goes up. But a state government doing it with Bitcoin, that was just theory. It was just talk. Until now. Now it's very, very real. And let's just let that number sink in for a second. $10 million. This isn't them just dipping their toes in the water, right? This isn't some tiny little experiment. No, this is a serious, deliberate investment. They are putting major cash behind this idea. And you better believe it's a move designed to make everyone sit up and pay attention. Okay, so here's the bottom line. This is official, it's on the books. Texas has basically planted its flag in the digital world. They're the first US state to formally put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, not as a trade, but as a strategic asset. And just like that, this whole idea of a government crypto reserve jumped from the pages of a white paper into the real world. This isn't a what if anymore, it's a what now. So that obviously begs a huge question, right? What in the world is a strategic Bitcoin reserve? What does that even mean? Let's get into it. Okay, so think of it this way. It's basically a government stockpile, but instead of gold bars or barrels of oil, it's a digital asset. The whole point is to do two things. First, to hold its value over the long haul, kind of like how we've used gold for, well, forever. And second, it's meant to be a hedge. Like an insurance policy against all the usual economic headaches like inflation eating away at your money. So how does this stack up against the stuff we're used to? I mean, we get the idea of a government having gold locked away in a vault or owning huge oil reserves, physical stuff. But Bitcoin? It's a totally different animal. It's digital. It exists everywhere and nowhere at once. And this is the big one. No single government or bank controls it. That leap from a physical thing a government can lock up to a decentralized digital thing, that's what makes this whole strategy such a game changer. Okay, so you might be thinking, all right, that's just Texas being Texas, right? A one-off experiment. But is this part of something bigger? Is anyone in Washington, D.C. even noticing? Well, the answer is a huge yes. This is not just a state-level thing anymore. And this is really important to understand. What's happening in Texas isn't happening in a bubble. Lawmakers at the federal level, we're talking Congress here, are actively debating what role digital assets should play in the entire country's financial strategy. It's gotten so serious, in fact, that there's actually a proposed law called the Bitcoin for America Act, and its whole purpose is to figure out the rules for how the U.S. government itself could buy and hold Bitcoin. Now, whether this specific bill actually becomes law, that's almost beside the point. The fact that it even exists tells you everything you need to know. This idea has reached the highest levels of power. All right, so a state is buying Bitcoin. Congress is debating it. But let's get down to the most important question. Why should you care? What does this all actually mean for the real world? This is the so what part of the story. Let's really zoom out and look at the big picture here. Because what we're talking about could have a ripple effect across the entire economy. And yeah, that could eventually affect all of us. So there are a few huge potential outcomes to watch. First up, diversification. States might start moving away from being 100% reliant on the US dollar. That's a massive shift. Second, you could see a kind of digital gold rush. Imagine if Texas does well with this. You could have other states scrambling to get a piece of the pie, right? And for an asset with a limited supply, that could get interesting. And third, well, this is the big unknown. This could either be a genius move that helps states fight inflation, or it could tie their fortunes to the roller coaster of the crypto markets, bringing in a whole new kind of risk. Nobody knows for sure how that will play out. So, if you remember one thing from all this, let it be this. What we're seeing here isn't just a simple investment. It's a huge strategic bet on what the future of money looks like. It's a government, a US state, saying, yeah, we think these digital assets are going to be a permanent part of how the world works from now on. And that really leaves us with the $1 million, or maybe the $10 million question. Texas kicked this whole thing off. They were the first. But as this idea starts to spread, you have to wonder, who's next? And more importantly, will it be your state?
Something to think about.